Welcome to the Diversity is the Game Changer, to the very new episode after actually not that very long, but it feels for me quite long pause because we uh, kind of experience our time not in maybe quantity but quality and how much experience. And since last time I around my show, I believe it was Benjamin actually, yes, and it has happened so much in my life, so incredible stories, and the power of transformative storytelling at the Broughton Sanctuary actually now brought me the very special gift and blessing and guest in my life biography and to our show. So please help me, my beautiful audience, to welcome very special guest, very special soul today. It's another really enlightening episode of Diversity is the Game Changer, the space where we celebrate minds that feel deeply, think differently, and challenge the norm. And when we can forget, we can stumble, we can do what we want. We're really human, like 100%. We don't need again to be curated filter mask. We have all of that 24/7. Actually, here we try to updo this norm right now. Let's go to the actually our real human nature, and we doesn't work like that actually, and that's amazing, right? So today's episode title Unlocking the Power of the Sensitive, the Unseen, and the Misunderstood, with my brilliant guest Kirsty Allan. And she has spent her entire life doing all those things which I had mentioned. That welcome to the show, my darling.
Hello. Thanks
Hello.
for having me.
Thank you for actually asking 1 hour now. I can call it a common friend to connect us, really. And now we're, of course, we understand that there is nothing, even 1 second of coincidence in everything what is happening in our lives, right? We are intertwined. We are actually the part of the whole one enter energy, but we will be talking about that. So now I would like to introduce this really multiple diversified gem. What a gem of a person. It's exactly what I have been writing to Peter today, and thank him so much for connecting us. I really literally use this gem word. So again, introducing, I'm deeply honored with how I have already mentioned to welcome you, my darling, a true polymath, gentle disruptor, a lifelong advocate for creative minds, sensitive souls, and alternative wisdom. Especially for me, because I'm neurodivergent and really passionate advocating for that. And I am not going to steal the word from the mouth of Kirsty. She will be sharing about her path. So yes, but okay, a little bit data still from my side. Born in Scotland in 1982 and now live in the English countryside with her husband, 2 children, cats, and a snake. Oh my god, this is like wow, mind blowing because I have snake phobia, but I'm working on that. Kirsty is a truly diverse gem. A highly sensitive person, empath, consciousness explorer, artist, healer, author, and scholar, and many more, I believe. But we don't have this ocean of we have it, but we also want to listen and hear your voice, not just mine. In the early 2000s, she became one of the leading pioneers of the new burlesque movement in the UK. Wow! Founding the Ministry of Burlesque. Wow! And empowering hundreds of performers, especially women, to reclaim their creative and cultural power. A lifelong scholar of the mystical and psychological, she is now completing a PhD in parapsychology and consciousness research, blending science and spirit in deeply meaningful ways. During lockdown, she wrote the transformational book Eve, a journey from anxiety to enlightenment. And I'm so grateful to you for this amazing gift for me that I will be I'm already envy myself to the moment I'm starting discovering the gems in your book, because actually it's true. I cannot read people like book in PDF because my books, they have souls and body, and I need to touch those bodies, and I need to feel the souls.
Yeah.
So it's like sacred for me. Like it's like my babies with the body soul. So PDF, I don't understand that.
Yeah, they have a
need
spine,
to.
right?
I
Books have a spine, right?
Yes, exactly. So that's why I was deliberately and kindly ask you, could you please also touch by your soul? And if you even like, I have a pill from the author, like you signed it, then it's like, the Kinder Surprise 3 in 1. Okay, so but about the books which you have shown to us, A Journey from Anxiety to Enlightenment, where she redefines anxiety as a source of deep intelligence and creative potential. So that led to the creation of the platform and movement If Crowd, a vibrant online community helping sensitive and intuitive people, neurodivergent, of course, step into leadership roles as society sages, creators, and change makers. She also leads the Sense Retreat, which will be touching today because it's upcoming, very, very special space. You're going to co-create, and I hope also I can contribute in some way. It's a really one of a kind experience at Broaden Sanctuary for highly sensitive people to explore their unique ability, not just to sense patterns, but also to influence outcomes and thrive. So Kirsty is a bridge between science and soul, between sensitivity and strength, between inner world and outer change. So let's dive into your story. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Well, that's quite an introduction. Yeah, thank you. It's brilliant to be here.
And let's hope. I know I came from this very special retreat, which is actually the Embassy of the Future. And last week I've been on all my molecules, atoms, all my intelligence, like trying to fly into the future. But we, of course, know there is never ever learn or future without our past. And if we take this small period, which you and me can really, really touch, it's actually our past. So I would like to dive a little bit backwards to your past and actually to your childhood and its impact on your life, and especially adult life, and this long lasting echoes of the child, right? Because we know, especially behind every sensitive soul is a childhood full of experiences, special influences, question, contrast, quiet power, loud power, a lot of questions while we were kids, right? So let's begin there. Can you take us back to your early years and maybe very special key moments or feelings that shaped your identity, and how actually on when you could understand about your very special giftness, I mean, and highly sensitivity and deeply creativity? Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a great question. And speaking of childhood, I always have little childy things around. I've always got little
Oh,
toys, little fluffy things, little
yeah, so sweet.
items.
Thank you for sharing.
Because I always have quite a strong attachment to, material objects and things, which, they speak back to us, don't they? They remind us of times, they remind
Yeah,
us of people, they remind us of circumstances and things like that. So it's something that I found is quite important to acknowledge where we are in the now, what kind of, material objects, what kind of culture we have around us and how it still talks to us, and whether that's, growth
bridge, right?
or
It's
otherwise.
not bridging. Yeah, bridge.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I guess I've always been a very sensitive person. I didn't know necessarily the term like highly sensitive person until, maybe really a few years ago that as a formulation. But certainly, all through my life, I've recognized myself as someone who's very sensitive. Physically, I always had, physiological sensitivities, so allergies, eczema, asthma. I was
Mm-hmm,
one of
mm-hmm.
those kids that ended up being the reason that we have maybe the crazy over labeling now with because I have a nut allergy, so that was one of the things. Carry EpiPens, all that kind of stuff. So I've always had a kind of what the doctors call like a sensitive system, that I just very reactive. But I always noticed that this wasn't just biological, that this would also be very closely linked with emotion. So, if I was stressed or feeling kind of anxious, this would manifest in physical health and so on. And this was a very clear duality, even from a very young age, that I was very aware of. very emotional, very reactive, yeah, very sensitive, but also intuitive, always having really, special relationships with animals, with even like finding insects which looked maybe like injured that I would keep on a window ledge for days and try to feed them. I think, this kind of thing, but really feeling very connected to the rest of life force, I guess. And as a little child, some of my earliest memories are that I wouldn't be able to sleep until I kind of looked to the moon for a certain amount of time and felt a sense of some kind of connection, some kind of communication, some kind of reflective wisdom in some way. And only really then could I actually kind of sleep. And yeah, and as I got kind of older, I became very involved in dance, very involved in kind of creative activities, but at the same time being paradoxical, kind of being really immersed in things, but never feeling quite good enough. So having this perpetual experience of feeling a longing for deep connection, for seeking that deep connection, and yet always feeling like it still disconnected in some way, wondering if I was even from here at times, thinking I didn't feel like I was quite correct in this skin or something like that. And I used to wonder if that was why I had, like eczema, or I had these kinds of allergies, that there was some kind of something not fitting quite right. And I've never really entirely resolved that. But it certainly set me up for what I would come to understand, as an adult, about being a highly sensitive person who has this need for depth, need for connection, and a very reactive, very responsive nervous system, maybe immune system, maybe all these other systems as well. And all of that is about finding, those particular needs and those particular set points, Goldilocks, if you will, in your environment and in your kind of nurturing surroundings. And then the kind of more spiritual side, I always was very keen on seeking out spiritual or religious groups, even as a teenager, which was back then very uncool. But, I like to think that now actually it probably is cool. You want to be a rebel, join a church or something. It's very rebellious now. And nothing really kind of worked for me, except for always going back to these very esoteric, very nature-based ideas of like the moon, the stars, the cycles of the year, the insects, the plants, the animals around me. And when I was about 14, I had what was probably my first maybe mystical experience. And I was on holiday with a bunch of teenagers, and we were exploring the Mull of Kintyre in Scotland. And we'd been around a kind of abandoned castle ruin, etc. And from the top of this ruin, I looked around to the hillside and all of the greenery around, and I could suddenly see the face of the Green Man. This is a thing that we have quite a lot in the British Isles. The Green Man was everywhere. So it's this kind of face that seems to be made of foliage, seems to be made of leaves, seems to come out of the greenery. But it wasn't the same face. There was just infinite number of these faces all over, everything green, every stone surface, everywhere I looked. And of course, some of the rational explanation that people offer to me today as an adult is it's pareidolia. It's, seeing faces where we're hardwired to see faces. But really being honest about, what that experience was at the time it happened, it was profoundly meaningful. This was at the time when I was having, a bit of an existential crisis about where I fitted in to life, the universe, and everything. And I was trying to find it in religion. I was trying to find it in, pop culture, in school, etc. None of this was really sufficient. None of this was really had the depth that I seemed to need. And in that moment, there was this profound connection with the natural world, almost looking back at me. It shifted everything. And from that moment, it really, I think, set me on this path of curiosity and inquiry as to how we might come to understand this kind of connection, what it means for us as humans, why we might seek it out, and maybe even how we might cultivate it. So here I am at 43 now doing just that.
Wow, what a powerful message, and how you could really put all this, like we call it like the red thread, but in your case maybe green thread from all that. And what actually came to my mind immediately, that first of all, of course, this special feelings of not like belonging immediately, like, uh, it stepped my after my feet like the whole life, and those I was raised in completely different environment, Soviet Union, and then expansion of Soviet Union, everything, but still I couldn't like really even understand or describe, like I understood that there's something going on much more than just all these levels, like political, what has happened, because I was in this also very big major change, like, politically and all this, but it's not what I felt. I felt like, first of all, I never like really belonged, and then all the time was seeking the questions and started through the mind or through the body, more than body, then disconnect mind, more than mind, disconnect body, because of course, I could never be aware at that time about embodiment, about really like connection with nature, because I was born in a Soviet. It was totally anti-propaganda against church or any kind of like religion. It should be like everything communistic and common, and you just one puzzle to serve the not humanity but like society, just for the party or this propaganda. So even I was baptized like in a very secret ritual, and it was so dangerous that my parents or godparents, they could be put in jail. So it was like completely disparate polarization, right? So I never experienced like Christmas when I was, but I understood that there's, okay, in that way it was like I believed that it was something wrong with me, because I was not like other kids, right? And like probably was also like all the time, like, that's why I mean, like, you're so diverse, so brilliant. I'm like, first, even burlesque, you try to find like, okay, through the body, through the conscious, through the mind, through that. So for me, I'm so very happy that actually we are kind of even from those different continents and all this experience, but in the same frequency, and we totally align. We understand what's going on and why we're sitting here and now. For me, it's interesting about a little bit more your family, because also when you go all through this transformation already, like path, like, what was your unwavering support? Could you find it at least in your family or brothers of, maybe not much friends, but familiar, your family? Okay, Norwegian words pop up. They gave you this at least opportunity to explore, because in Soviet it's taboo, like from all over. You can't. It's just not allowed.
Yeah, something that I'm very grateful for was that I had a very positive, very nurturing upbringing. So my childhood, was underpinned by the hard work and the foresight of my parents, who were from a kind of working class kind of Glasgow sort of area background, and both my parents worked very, very hard to provide opportunities for me and also my brother, so that we could have what they didn't, and so go to university, for example. And of course, I did go to university, and I went quite early. I qualified when I was maybe 16 or something, stayed a bit longer at school, 17, then went, still felt I was too young. I had this kind of very keen self-awareness that I felt very young and I felt very vulnerable. And that experience was one of feeling even more alienated, because then we're in an institution that feels alien because it's traditionally for other subsets of society, and so on. And of course, these kind of traditional organizations, which we still, exist in today, they don't really support sensitivity. They actually kind of more reward maybe being a little bit less sensitive, so that people are tough and, what we would see as resilient, etc. And that, it does echo that the society we're in the West, where competition and the individual reward, is kind of seen as more valuable perhaps than something which is collective and shared. And that's kind of maybe a little bit counterintuitive to my nature, hence, how I was as a child. But equally on the kind of more medical, physical front, like with all my allergies and with all my problems that I had, there was always this worry that, like, at any point I, might die because of these kinds of allergies. And so my parents were always very protective and very kind of forthright about how to address this. And at the same time, it almost reinforced an idea that being in my body wasn't safe,
Okay.
you know? And in some ways, perhaps that and the seeking of connection through religious groups and spiritual groups and pop culture and things, which none of it really fitted for me. I became very self-conscious about body and, appearance, which I think, ultimately was the catalyst for stepping into what would become the burlesque movement. It wasn't the burlesque movement at the time, it had yet to happen, but I think I felt the zeitgeist. So I was simultaneously a psychology student, feeling quite alienated and kind of trying to navigate this, what seemed like enormous and strange social construct around me. And at the same time thinking, I don't know what this is either, and then finding, oh, do you know what? I could test a theory. I could just strip off in front of everybody and see what the reaction is. And if everybody is horrified, then okay, I don't belong here. But let's test the theory. And it was really kind of in doing that in a very playful way. And he's a lot of humor, so that this isn't a kind of complete like black and white test. It's humor. And I found that, to my surprise, people really loved it. They found it funny, they found it kind of thrilling, they found it kind of a little bit challenging in some ways. But what the best bit was, and I think this is where my spidey senses, my intuition was going, was that the people who got the most out of it were other young women.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they wanted to do it. They were like, "Where did you learn this? How do I get involved?" And I'm like, "I didn't learn it. I just made myself do it. I've been, terrified for the past 3 months building up to this, but I've done it now." And more and more people got involved. And then there was this thing called burlesque and the new burlesque. And so by that point, I was kind of in a position to facilitate, because I'd stepped ahead because of my anxiety, because of my insecurity. And I think that sort of sense of realness was evident, and that people felt, well, actually, this is maybe a little bit safer than it once was, or that pathway didn't exist before, and now it does. So it's been an honor to have been part of that and to see that open up. But yeah, but the other side of the sensitivity angles around, there's the sensing into maybe what's needed in society. It's not just what I'm feeling, other people are feeling it too. It is those that fine line between sensory processing and the medicalization. So as a young person, all my life I've had what's now known as visual snow, but it didn't have a name until recently. So it's a bit like visual tinnitus. So you've got a field of static in your visual field. And it's never bothered me. I just see through it. It doesn't obstruct me in any way. My way of experiencing it anyway. It's always just been a curiosity. But when I was around 10, I remember I just mentioned it, in front of my parents and said, "Oh, what is that stuff that you see? Is that the air? Are those air molecules? What is that?" And of course, that was when the penny dropped that this wasn't normal. That people didn't experience this, right? So I went to see an eye specialist, and I remember this doctor just saying to my parents, as though I wasn't in the room, even though I was standing there, that there was absolutely nothing wrong with my eyes or my visual system. So either I was making it up or I needed a psychiatrist. And thankfully my parents were, as I said, very nurturing, very, had a lot of foresight. They just kind of quietly just kind of moved me out of that situation. And fortunately, they didn't pursue that. And I would just wonder to this day how many little kids, in the past have said, "Oh, I see things a bit differently," or "I hear things differently," or "I think things differently." And the knee-jerk reaction has been to medicate. It's so again another eye opener when I was little. So that, with in combination with all the other things, really have kind of led me to this point of wanting to help other people or support other people to explore, uncover, and celebrate kind of beauty and brilliance, especially where it's overlooked, because it's where things are overlooked. It's where we're kind of self-suppressing. That's really where the magic is, that it's in there, and it's the most potent because it's what's yet to be revealed. It's what's yet to become manifest and what the world needs to hear. And I realized, like, on this journey of mine, like, if I hadn't just tolerated and worked with that anxiety of mine before getting on stage, in terms of burlesque, I just wondered to what extent maybe a number of other people wouldn't have done the same and wouldn't have met their own personal breakthrough. So I'm very committed to this idea of being a reluctant leader, if you like. It's like heart-born leaders are born because of their personal insecurities. They're the ones that are going to step forwards on the path that is yet to be trodden. Yeah, the path that is yet to exist. And it's okay that they're going to step forward and maybe twist an ankle or trip over something or stumble. That means they really are at the forefront, rather than someone that shoved their way to the front because the path's already been checked out for them. And then they're just like, I'm the leader, I'm at the front. So it's like, it's paradoxical. And this is the message I really want to get to people, is that if you have something you want to explore, if you have something that hasn't ever quite felt right, hasn't ever been quite included, hasn't ever quite felt like, it's fitted or it's been understood, then this is your call to action.
Exactly.
Explore it, talk about it, maybe even cultivate it, because there are people who need to hear this message from you.
Amazing. Wow, what a powerful message. And I really feeling like so alignment inside my energy and cells and everything. It's exactly what I'm trying also to advocate so strongly for, that due or thanks to my OCD, I'm trying to convert and transform it into my creative fuel, and looking, like you and me, we talked a little bit yesterday, not from deficit based model, but from strength based model, right? But of course it takes a lot of courage and a lot of practice and job, because what is new normal, what is typical, what is now I'm so happy and gladly we can change the narrative and vocabulary and storytelling, because the whole our story, actually through storytelling, the whole our life, and now because of neurodivergence, even terminology, we can find belonging to very special tribes, when we can not just accept, tolerate our special gifts, but we can celebrate them. We have to celebrate them. We are so unique. But yes, it takes sometimes a village around. It takes sometimes many years for yourself to even start acknowledge that there is not just something wrong, because every time the people, if they have never experienced it before, especially people who around you, it scares them to the death, right? And before you even start thinking, oh, what it is, and be curious, and maybe with the beginner's mind, like in mindfulness. But of course, the first reaction is like, oh, something abnormal. It's not normal. It should not be like that. But who said how it should be actually, right? And why, when we're kids, they taught us to believe in Santa Claus, magic, and fairy tales. Why we start our lives with every single evening with parents about that, and so all of a sudden we have to unlearn and start just be presented all this what we can imagine or see, or this is really our giftness. Suddenly, like, it's abnormal, it's to be ashamed of, it's actually flaws, and just then materialistic, like plain goal target, fears. I don't know what was, perestroika and 5 years in communistic country. All of a sudden, actually, it's also this like polarization, this disparity from when you're a kid, you believe, like they encourage you to believe in magic, fairy tales, and where is this transmission, or where is this path actually, right? So I totally understand. That's why I'm trying also through my show to we discover, we elaborate, but also even more concrete, what kind of tools and gift and advices we can give to my audience, not including the parents, the people who actually around, how they can support when they have very special kids. And actually, of course, all kids are very special and unique, but I mean when your kids really so special and dare to share it. So please, I hope you have this beginner's mind, that you are not killing immediately, like, what do you mean, what are you talking about, or something, right? And even maybe if they don't have those kids, or they have another environments, because I have adopted 2 kids from orphanages, and there are so many in Ukraine, and it will be so many due to the war, orphans, right? So, and it will be the whole generations maybe of lost parents for those kids. What would be your advice, actually? I mean, like concrete advice that we can now address to those very special, sensitive kids, right? Looking back, what message you already now brilliantly given to us,
Yeah.
or the adult who actually surround them, how even from now, maybe it will be game changing, like, the idea today, when they very first time can listen you and me, and suddenly, oh, but maybe I am not good enough, not broken, not strange or awkward, but actually I really have this giftedness, right? So what kind of advice you could give them, that they really can go inside and actually start approaching it, that it's about their worth and potential, and not deficits.
So with sensitivity in mind in particular, some people, there's a subset of the general population are just naturally born more sensitive than others, than the general population. And there are really good evolutionary reasons for that. It's healthy, it's normal, it's just that you're in a smaller subgroup, of the general population. And the idea with sensitivity is that it creates a kind of paradoxical way of being. So you have a processing style, which means that you take in kind of like more information from your surroundings than most people, rather than having like a kind of focus, like much wider, softer focus. You're bringing in much more information, and you're processing it incredibly well, incredibly deeply. So there's a lot more going on for you. So on the one hand, this can lead to overwhelm. It can lead to this feeling of things being too much, of like things being too bright, things being too loud. But also where empathy comes in, it can be like feeling too much, and that can be not just with other people, it can be with animals, nature, the earth, everything. So there's that one side of it. It's paradoxical. But that same processing style also fosters what I would call sensitive magic. It's this innate magic, these innate capacities. When you think and feel very deeply, you're making more neural connections at a deeper level, and therefore it fosters imagination, memory, creativity, intuition, empathy, and other kind of perceptual, abilities as well. And that's kind of some of the things that I study, is looking at extrasensory perception and the capacity to trend predict, or to predict probabilities in the unfolding, or like the rolling of a dice, for example, just as a kind of a metaphor. But if you think that, there's a good metaphor I like to use, is if we think of like a pack of wolves, and this sensitivity trait is found in other species such as wolves as well. If we think of a pack of wolves who are coming out of a forest edge and they're hungry, okay, and it's becoming nighttime and maybe the weather is changing and they're hungry, and they see something, over down the bank, the river bank, something that they could hunt and they could get for food. And most of the pack go, but maybe one wolf stays back. Maybe they're kind of like 1 in 5 maybe stays back. And it's not because they're not hungry or that they can't do the hunt. It's because, well, what if something goes wrong with the hunt? What if they're not successful? Then what happens? Everyone goes hungry. The one who stays back has the view of the whole landscape in front of them. They're taking in this huge wide vision of what is unfolding, of what probabilities there are, of what's coming over the horizon. They can resource find, they can opportunity spot, and they can sense the threats as well. And that's kind of like the function of the sensitive person. It's kind of thought that they're the natural sages, the natural shamans, if you like, of their community. But because we all kind of live in these unnatural cycles where we don't have to go out and kind of resource find all the time. And when it gets dark and the weather changes, we just go inside. And what do? We turn on lights and things like this. So we're very disconnected from nature and from natural cycles. And so sensitive people are quite disenfranchised in the modern world. So it makes kind of sense in our culture that we think, oh, well, this person is struggling a bit. They're finding the world too intense. They're feeling they don't belong. Everything's too bright, too much for them. They're feeling anxious all the time, saying, oh, but what if I don't belong? What if they don't like me? The inner critic is huge. Well, of course it is, because they've been disenfranchised from that purpose. And so rather than seek purpose or try to find it out there, I would advocate for sensitive people to create purpose, create it from that sense of deep self, you know, and step into those strengths of imagination, of memory, of creativity, of intuition, of empathy, of intelligence, of all the things that this fosters, so that you can really create in the world with a big C. Yeah, not just creating like arty things or creating new things, creating from the heart. And the way you get to know what's in your heart is actually, paradoxically, again, by understanding what it is you're anxious about. You know, sometimes when we think, oh, I'm anxious because I think, what if I don't fit in? What if I make a mistake? What if I don't belong? If we could put those little questions down and turn around and look at the big question behind us, we're asking the big existential questions. What is the meaning of life? What is my purpose? So when you focus on that, a funny thing happens to the everyday anxieties, and that's that they kind of resolve themselves. So, you know, I would like to just put, it's a call to action for people who think and feel deeply all the time. This is just your resting state of being, that celebrate that resting state of being, because the world really needs you now. It needs you to step into your natural innate magic, you know, your natural role as a community leader, you know, as a wise person, as someone who can predict what's maybe going to be unfolding, what's needed, to use your empathy, to use your deep understanding for healing. Yeah, for making things beautiful, for understanding what is beautiful and brilliant about yourself, others, and the world around you, and in humanity itself. Yeah, and to uncover that and cultivate it. That's my
Wow.
wish for everybody.
Thank you so much. It's so beautiful and powerful at the same time, and that's why I do really believe in the transforming power of collaboration, and that's why we have to facilitate and create with Big C, like you've mentioned, this arena when people like you and me and other who maybe in the beginning path, how can they transform it and use their or anxiety or depression or our high sensitivity, which actually signal from them where they can tap and put and transform this. They have so much energy accumulated there into something really creative, and it's their calling how to also be role models and to be change makers, to help and save also people who like the first row around them, but also more and more ripple effect, because healing, it's contagious, right? So that's why I would like you to share more for us about the platforms and movements which you've been creating not last but many years. And I know that that if we're talking about diversity of thoughts and creative, this inclusive environments, right? So I would like you to, because you've been working like across so many different domains, in art and mental health and academia, consciousness research, right? So, and I know everything, all that like fuel each other. It's so intertwined. It's actually what also we would like, and we can give and share the tools to those people, because they're so super creative, right? Super innovative, and people around us and the society, especially now, all the problems we have in the world, they need people like that. They need you and me. They need people to propel all this society forward. It has been always like that, actually, but creative and supportive environment and community, it's tremendously important, right? So that's why I'm so grateful for you that you are in so many projects and platforms. So if you could then share with our audience and people, if they also would like to participate, contribute, how to be a member of your maybe if movement community, what kind of retreat are you actually co-organizing now in Broughton Sanctuary, of course, about your book, all these amazing initiatives, because this is undeniable that together we are stronger, and because we are so diverse, we have to be complementary to each other. There is no competition, especially now we face the major crisis like global challenges, right?
Mm.
So how can we really believe we can go to all our corners and find the solutions? No, just from learning, nurturing, this collaboration, um, heart, energy, spirit, consciousness, and love. How we can actually stay strong, especially now, and I'm Ukrainian, what's
Yeah,
happening in my country.
I
So
think we,
please feel free to tell us about the brilliance of your platforms, which I remember now. It's if, right? It's your book. It's the retreat. I will be more than happy also to contribute. So if you could give also the idea about others, what's going, what actually the whole idea and project, and where they can find more information. Of course, they can always reach out to me and to you, but maybe more also, maybe somebody have super ideas or super people who can contribute, and yeah.
brilliant. Yeah, it comes down to what we talked about right at the start. Really, it's about this idea of belonging and reconnection. Like getting back to source. So there's so many people, are kind of maybe institutions or organized type, religious groups, etc. Maybe they do work for them, but for many people, I would think maybe sensitive people, neurodiverse people, maybe they're not so ideal. And it's perhaps, I would argue that, we're often looking for this really, really deep essence of something rather than the kind of stories on the top. And that's the same in the academic world. Like you can be shown an equation and it's like, this is how it works. And you go, okay, yeah, but how? Show me how. You have to go deep to really process and really understand this. You want to know it at a deep philosophical level. And that's kind of like what underpins sensitivity, what underpins a lot of the work that I do is in creating space for people to explore that and not to have to apologize for taking longer to do it or for wanting more resources or for wanting to share what might be a mad idea. But of course, in the right company, it's genius because other people can understand the depth at which you've come to this connection and why all of these things, which to many people seem disparate and unconnected, are really obviously fundamentally connected. And when we work from that place of depth, we can have much more impact, on the collective good. So I think like where we work with our own anxieties, for example, and that's what the book was about, that it came about during lockdown. This one here it's an upbeat kind of
Wow,
humorous
tremendous.
guy. Thank
Looking
you.
for.
Thank you. And the premise of that really is to start from right where you are and say, okay, I'm anxious about stuff. I'm worried about stuff. You say, okay, well, what is it you're anxious and worried about? Let's dig into that because that is mental energy, that is physical energy, that is emotional energy, it's spiritual energy, it's every kind of energy of your being. And it's potent stuff. It's really, really, strong. Yeah. Anyone that's ever had, OCD or panic disorder or any kind of intense anxiety experience can tell you it's a full being, a full body, full system experience. It's not all in your head. There's it's just the head's quite an important part of the body, I find. Not a physician, but pretty sure it's important. It's full blown, it's every part of your being. Okay. So it's like, well, what is that? Why are we trying to necessarily shut that down? Yes, aspects of it, may require support to resolve them, to deal with the more challenging aspects, especially where they become disordered. But for many people, it's a kind of part of their resting state of being, is just to be predisposed to worry, predisposed to anxiety. So getting deep in the detail, what is it about? What's under the bonnet? What are the deep needs that aren't being met? What are the deep values that are not being honored or upheld? And what is the deep desire that is being suppressed or ignored? And when we get to understand what these are, we can start to transform all of that raw energy and transmute it and focus it into what we do want to happen in the world, as opposed to what we're firefighting against. And that's the kind of proposition there. And then when people come into the if crowd, it's from that proposition of saying, right, now what are you going to do with it? Yeah, well, we'll help you work with, the challenging aspects of sensitivity, having very fluid boundaries, a very kind of thin sense of self and others. We're very fluid people. We kind of feel like we are reflected in others around us and so on. And that can lead to people pleasing on the one hand, reassurance seeking. But on the other hand, it also fosters this amazing capacity to understand what the collective needs, values, and desires, right? So when you get really deep down into, like, for example, my burlesque days, What was I really motivated by? I was motivated by my own deep need, value, and desire for some kind of acceptance. Yeah. So I sensed I was not the only one. And true enough, what happened after I did the brave thing, it wasn't perfect, but I did it. What happened was, I played a part in the unfolding of something so much larger than I could have imagined. And it's from that place of self-understanding, as they say, there's the Oracle of Delphi, know thyself. Start from there. Then we move into this proposition of now what? And that's when we really step into that sensitive magic, that capacity to create with a big C. This is really creating big impact, creating in a way like you're a scintillation of the divine source. And that's what we do in the IF crowd, is that we're a safe space where just a kind of collective of people that say, okay, I have these challenges, and we say that's okay. We don't need to, focus all our time on those. We will work with them and we will accept them as part of who you are. And what we're going to do about it? Well, we're going to do this amazing writing project. We're going to do this amazing art project. We're going to do this brilliant blog. We're going to do whatever it is. And that's what it's about. And then that's theifcrowd.com. And, it can be free for anybody who needs it to be free to join. So if you go to the website, you'll see how that unfolds for you. You just email me as well. And then the Sense Retreat has come about because I was invited by the absolutely wonderful curators, custodians of Broughton Sanctuary to bring a good idea that would have really positive social impacts, for collective good. And I said, well, how about we support sensitive people to come together in space and time, and really, feel this sense of magic unfolding as they immerse themselves in celebrating their sensitivities in a space where they feel held, seen, heard, cared for. Yeah. And in doing so, it allows them, just this opportunity to sense the future, and what they want to do with that. And that's, that's the intention, is to have this as the first one this October and then have it as a repeat event, so that we're really building the collective sense of sensitive magic. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, the wonderful world of weird, which is also at Broughton Sanctuary, where, I work with Peter Merry, who introduced us. And we work with mind matter interaction, and we use technology. We use science and technology to demonstrate to people that they can have a tangible interaction, that's non-physical, by influencing what would be random streams of ones and zeros that shouldn't have, structures in them. But there we go. But we find that actually, under certain circumstances, structures do emerge, and at times they are very statistically significant, suggesting that there's something unusual going on, or there's something more happening. And we believe that that's related to intention, attention, that kind of coherence of the people in the room with some kind of like a shared sentiment of, of love, of goodness. And that's what we're going to be doing, in October.
Amazing. I really looking forward to doing, because like I've shared already, I've been a keynote speaker on crisis, but I saw already the window after, and it reminds me very much today. I was a little bit reflecting with myself after lecture. I could hear the Ken Wilber and about his integral theory, because he was presented during our Broughton Embassy of the Future retreat, right? And it's exactly what you are saying, that we all have so many intelligences and energies, and he also and when we are talking about even spiritual intelligence, then it's one thing, spiritual intelligence, but another thing is spiritual experience, right? And you can have the intelligence but without practicing experience muscle. So it's exactly, and it's like kind of spiritual intelligence, like talk, but spiritual experience and muscle we have to train. It's a walk. So actually the sense retreat, it will be basically what you are going to align both intelligence or awareness or consciousness, but also experience. It's so very important, because we're still people, we still kind of need proof, because before many soul people, they kind of lived in the era of faith, and if they're preset, so that's it, we never question. But now we need all this alignment with kind of question, which is also nice. It's curiosity, but it's not just enough faith. We have to experience that, right? That's why the scientific field, which Peter and you're part of course, it's a huge deal. So yeah, so it's amazing. It's like both aligning walk and talk, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
really thriving. Amazing. So please, I encourage everybody. I will be making the very nice profound post about, of course, the show. Instagram or podcast will be posted both on Instagram and LinkedIn, but you are always more than welcome to reach out to me or to Kirsty. I will be sharing all the information about her engagements. Amazing, profoundly ripple effect. Before we wrapping up, I have very special tradition usually, or I ask one of my koalas vice president to ask question, or I have even better. I have this cute little tough which is my vice president here, which I do believe in magic, and she works really hard, because in Aladdin, I know Genie makes 3 wishes. This is a little bit sustainable approach that she can help. She wants to help as many people as possible, like around the world, because I'm really hosting. I'm so privileged by God, like to meet my people on my path on my show. So the last question before we wrapping up, I'm always asking, if you could make a wish just right now, but just one wish, not 3, to my Aladdin, not Aladdin, but magical vice president here. So what wish it could be?
Ooh. Okay. Maybe for the phrase "what if," that so many people ask themselves on a daily basis, to be transformed into the what if possibility. What if I try this thing and it's amazing? What if I take a chance and I change the world? What if I test my theory and I find my tribe? For people to shift from defaulting to fear and to shift towards connection rather than separation, towards connection, by asking themselves, what if? What if I make a decision today? What if I join that group? What if I sign up? What if I ask a question? Yeah, there we go.
Amazing. So let's put take out what if, and what if with plus charge and approach instead of deficit. Again, not
What if, yeah,
yes,
exactly. What if probability will unfold in a beautiful way?
exactly. Thank you so much. I really am impressed every single second you've been sharing with us. So Kirsty, if someone listening us now or will be interacting with you or me, right? And if somebody really can feel like too sensitive, too much, or simply too different, but what if the message that actually you are too unique, you have the special calling, you are just right here in the very special right place and moment, that you have to start to change this what if to not what if anymore, just plus, right? And the great, like you said, everything into connection, and we are here just in case if you need us.
Yeah.
Right, so amazing. And so I'm so happy I have met you. I would be more than happy then to wrap up and to connect you guys, my beautiful audience, with amazing, profoundly initiatives by Kirsty. It's, again, I can just summarize a bit. First of all, it's a book that you can find on Amazon, right? Yes.
Yep.
And book, it's called If: A Journey from Anxiety to Enlightenment. I'm really looking forward to my treat. Yes. And the community, the If crowd, please welcome heartfully to join us. I will be, of course, doing it myself. Creative Legacy Ministry of Burlesque. Oh my God, this is so cool. And I already shared with Kirsty, maybe one day we co-organize also any type of illusional process space. Then we can also be so creative and maybe make a small musical together, something like.
A
What
double
if,
act.
of
Yeah, a
course,
double act
but
is on the
but of
horizon.
course, it's, instead of what if, now I say, but of course.
Yeah, exactly. We see when, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And like, when people they ask me, Valeria, are you ready? So I'm born ready. I am born ready.
Yeah. So
Conscious Retreat, the Sense Retreat, again, Broughton Sanctuary in October, and personal site, Kirsty Lucinda Allen, right? Am I correct?
that's
Yes.
correct. Thank you. Yeah.
Amazing. And of course, please, if this episode spoke to you, appealed to you, that we have to be not we even don't have, but actually people who own a mission, they feel already every single second they are interacting, they are all in a mission, right? So please share this episode, share who needs to know that you're never alone. It's never like this, that you never belong. Really, people, they don't need to go all these ways of diversity ways, like Kirsty and me, we have been wondering, but maybe that of course that ways shaped us, and that's why we have been molded in that way and met each other. And but we really would like to be role models and to make this ripple effect contagious, to help others, please.
Yeah. And so the website, just it's funny you should say about belonging, because if you go belong.theifcrowd.com, that's the website. It's intentional that it has the word belong. And
Yeah.
it's thinking on your little genie in the bottle there, maybe to paraphrase what I was trying to say, it was just maybe we encourage our children, like you were saying before, Valeria, about we teach them about magic, we teach them fairy tales, and then they have to unlearn that. So maybe that said, maybe we, that's the message is, what if magic is real, and what if it's inside you? What if you've always been right? You've always known it.
Amazing. And then I said, but of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And I know it is just, it's not whatever, but it's just the magical beginning of my and yours journey. And I'm sure we really can co-create with the big sea level. And in this way, it can be co-create, and sea level can be compassion.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Much love to you. Blessings. And what is the name of this? Is this lady or?
It's a little spider. I just had him for
Aw.
forever. His little, he's
Aw.
well worn little
Thank you.
companion.
Yeah. So sweet. You remember I showed all my koalas, right? My supportive team. So we're on.
Your
Yeah.
team.
Totally aligned. Okay. See you
Thank you so
soon,
much.
and we'll be, yes, already like itching to read your book, and we talk soon, and I'm sure we meet each other and hug magic
Yes.
soon and do a lot of magic together, and with Peter,
Yeah.
and I'm sure.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Valeria. Thanks for having me, and speak to you
Bye
soon.
bye 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 bye. Thank you. Bye.
Take care.
Take care.